Hi, this is Jim and Terry Osborne. Welcome back to Osborns Onboard with the Osborns. Have to cut that out. Okay, so we are still continuing with our backstory. So we sold our boat and we're waiting to move and get our new boat. And while we're waiting for, and we do have big news on our relocation. Our lease was up April 1st. And so is going to be up April 1st. We've been in this apartment building for 10 years. We love our apartment building. And when I'm looking at places on the East Coast, I don't think we realized how much we had here.
Mm-hmm. It's pretty good.
Pretty amazing. And Michelle Staker, shout out to Michelle Staker. She's awesome. She's our property manager, and she is just a delight.
She's one of them.
One of them, yeah. And Travis, our maintenance guy.
He's delightful, too.
It's wonderful. He kept that pool spotless all summer, and 4 of the little kids that we had all summer, 3 learned how to swim. Or they finished the summer swimming. They had all had lessons, previously, but they were swimmers.
They could swim across the pool back and forth
by
the time we were done with the summer.
It's amazing. So shout out to Travis, our maintenance guy, for keeping our pool so pristine. And so our lease came up and we got our notice, and so we went month to month. So starting April 1st, our lease is month to month. So we're ready at any time to head for the coast.
So we can get out of town fast.
Yeah, get out of town fast. All right. Also, Jim went through COVID, got through it. Anything you want to share? I'm so glad that we're back together.
Mm-hmm. The illness was mild, but I was still sick for a little bit. But the bad part was the quarantining from each other inside our apartment. That was difficult. But we did it. Terry never got it, so.
Yep. It worked.
Got it. Yep. So it worked. Yep.
Yeah.
So still trying to be as cautious as possible because we don't want the grandkids or each other to get it. I don't want it again. That's no fun.
Right. I don't want it at all.
You don't want it at all.
Right. In fact, I was going to wear my mask tonight because I have zits. So
I think it helps. Didn't you get your zit vaccine? Come on.
No, I didn't get a zit vaccine. I think it should be against the law to be 62 years old and still fighting zits. I think that
there's something wrong with that.
I know, right?
Come on.
So if you are you still fighting zits? Feel free to.
I'm fighting a 6-pack abdomen thing. I want to get a nice little beer belly, but I can't. I just can't make this 6-pack go away.
Oh my goodness!
It's disturbing.
Yes.
I get too many looks.
It's important to have goals.
Yeah.
Okay. So today we're going to talk about our first love of our life, of our boats, Dagmar. And I'm just going to let you take it. She was your first love.
Okay. So we went and spent a week on a houseboat in the Florida Keys and looked at this little sailboat for a couple of days in a bay. And I got obsessed with that sailboat and sailing. I never stepped foot on a sailboat before, but I decided I needed to be a sailor at that point. I don't know why, but I did. So I obsessed over sailing, read everything I could on this subject, and didn't really want to buy a boat, so I wanted to build my own boat. So we were living in Tennessee at the time, and so I bought some boat plans, and then our son's Dalmatian ate those plans, so I bought them again a second time. I think they're about $150 at that time or whatever. It's been a while ago. And I was gonna build a small sailboat, and I was getting ready to order my first load of lumber, build it in the garage, and my wife looked at me and said, if you let somebody else build the boat, I might go with you on it. So I thought, okay, sounds like a good deal, and I understand because I had never really built anything that floated before. So we searched and we found a West White Potter 15. We bought one brand new, had it kind of custom made for us. We decided when we were in Tennessee, then we moved to Texas, and and then went for it. Went ahead and ordered that boat, and had a Potter delivered. Had never stepped foot on a sailboat before, either of us. Delivered it in the driveway, and we figured it out and hooked it up and took it out to the lake and went sailing.
Yes.
But we named her Dagmar because when we were having a baby, Terry was pregnant. I was working in a cemetery and came up with two wonderful names, Edgemont or Dagmar. And it turned out when Ben was born, he came out Ben. He kind of hi, I'm Ben, and then he peed on me a little bit, and we kind of went from there. So he didn't become Edgemont. So I've been trying for like 10 years to get, or no, 20 years at that point, to get everyone that I know, or even if I don't know them, if I knew that they were having a baby, I would try to talk them into naming their kid Edgemont or Dagmar. Anyway, the dog just had a barking fit. So I couldn't get anybody to name their little human Edgemont or Dagmar. I did have one friend who named her parakeet Edgemont, and like within a week he died, so that didn't turn out very good.
Not a good choice.
And so after 20 years of harassing everybody I know about Dagmar, as soon as I bought a sailboat, I was pretty much forced to name the boat Dagmar. So that's how that went. That's why her name's Dagmar.
Right.
And what else?
So that was our very first boat, and it was a 15-foot, as Jim said, West White Potter, 15-foot. And I think somebody may ask how we could afford to have a boat built, but I think that was my inheritance from my mom and dad.
Kinda.
Yeah.
That money came in, and you said, let's just go for it.
Yeah. Yep. We had just lost a dear friend. Shout out to Sandy Yacht. Her husband had just passed, and I thought to myself, and then we moved from Tennessee to Texas, and then all four of our parents were much older when they had us, and so they were in their 80s when they passed, but I was left a small inheritance, and I just said I can't imagine losing Jim as Sandy lost her husband, and if he wanted to sail and we didn't have the opportunity to do that, I couldn't see that would just rip me up. So we decided to take the inheritance and have a little boat built. So a little 15-foot West White Potter, and we had moved to Texas, and we were on Lake Belton, and super clean lake, and like empty, like nobody was on this huge lake, and it was surrounded by the Army Corps of Engineer land. Mm-hmm. So there weren't any developments, no
homes or businesses, right, or anything on the lake.
Right. It was just beautiful. And the guys that I worked with in Texas, they told me that it used to be a super busy lake, really big party lake, lots of drinking. And years ago, they cracked down on them, on all the partiers and boaters, and arrested a bunch of people for using alcohol on the lake. And so like nobody went there anymore. And so it was really awesome that we learned how to sail on this huge lake with nobody on it. Mm-hmm. So they delivered it, and we have pictures of the first day that Jim, when the boat came that day.
It had a cabin. It slept two people, mm-hmm. and it had a porta potty on board and storage space. So we had a galley. We had everything in bags. Our galley was in a bag, just his backpacking equipment and food and everything, and had all the space we could need. It was like a big boat, but only it was a tiny boat. Mm-hmm. It had a bimini for sunshade in Texas, and it had a big old bow pulpit with a nice anchor on that, and kick-up tiller, kick-up rudder, and kick-up
keel.
Keel, yeah. so swing keel, so
Swing
we didn't
keel,
have
there
to.
you go.
We could beach it.
Mm-hmm.
It was a nice little boat.
And so Jim had, his obsession went on for like 3 years. And he read all these books, all these magazines, and we got into the boat the first day, and he acted like he had sailed his entire life. I had never seen anything like it. It was just amazing. And the one thing that really, well, two things I think that really freaked me out was when he said he was going to put the sails up, and I was supposed to steer the boat into the wind so that he could put the sails up. Well, that was super loud, and I wasn't expecting that. When the sails are luffing, flapping back and forth, it was really loud. And to this day, when we have guests on board, before we raise the sails or before we lower the sails and I'm about to put the boat into the wind, I share with everybody that it's going to be loud, but there's no concerns. That's just, we're just pointing it into the wind to work with the sails. And the second thing that really freaked me out, of course, was when we heeled over. And so I just learned how to change position on the boat. Yes, I love you too. So I would change position on the boat to be on the high side, and I was fine. But absolutely, just, I couldn't believe it. He just acted like he had sailed his whole life.
Just put the sails up and
off we went.
Off you go. I hope you don't run into anything.
And we went like every weekend. We were out on that lake every weekend, and we started staying overnight on the boat, and then we started night sailing, and it was amazing. I loved it. I loved it better than regular sailing. Most of the time we would just sail to a cove, drop anchor, have lunch, and float for hours. Just ridiculously, and well,
You taught me the art of sunbathing on a floaty raft in the water.
It's delightful.
Which I never had the patience for.
Yes.
But
and we
learned
had
how to
water
do that.
toys. Remember those sponges things that we would pitch back and forth to each other, and but the lake was empty. We just had the whole thing to ourselves.
Clean and clear and
so
wonderful.
Clean. It was really delightful. One of the cleanest lakes, really,
in Texas. Yeah, top 5.
Yeah. Oh, and so this was also Lake Belton shares a border with Fort Hood, which was the largest military base in the free world at that time. I think since it is now in Colorado, but at that time, Fort Hood was the largest military base, and of course, I have never lived that close to a military base, and we like one of the first nights we were out there, we saw this huge flare go up. We had heard artillery practice from our house, and our house was what maybe, how far away did we live?
10 miles, maybe
10 miles. We lived away from the lake, and the house just shook when they were doing military exercises. But then when we were on the lake, we were right there on the base almost. And so that was really something to see those flares go up. And then our first winter there with the boat, we were out sailing at night.
We saw a bunch of light on the bank, and we didn't know what it was. We were too far away. And not until we got closer did we realize it was a drive-through Christmas light display thing on the fort itself.
It was huge. I mean, we couldn't believe
it. We had no idea it was there.
Yeah.
And we just looked at it from the water as we sailed up and down the shore there.
Right. And we don't have any pictures of it. We couldn't find any pictures. Jim's sure we have some, but we couldn't find them. But like everybody that would come to visit in December, we'd stick them in the boat and go look at these Christmas decorations, because it was really phenomenal. If you've been through a Christmas display park, the displays are just huge and phenomenal, and we got to see them from the water and didn't have to pay to see them.
There you go.
It was amazing. Okay, what else were we going to cover? Night sailing, our first sail. Oh, there was one guy on the lake, Catman.
Oh, the Catman.
Yeah. You want to tell that story?
Well, we sailed the lake a lot, and there was usually a single guy on a catamaran, not a Hobie. It was, I don't know what it was, but it was like a
laser.
It was like a 16-foot Hobie. No, it was a catamaran.
Okay. But he could fly
like
a hull.
20-foot. Yeah, and he was a serious sailor of this, always by himself, always on this boat, and he'd wave and stuff, and we got to the point where as he was sailing past us, always going pretty fast, I would always throw him a Coors Light, because that was our everyday beer at the time, and then that was just a habit. He'd always cruise by and we'd throw a beer at him, and he'd always catch it every single time.
I don't think he ever missed, not once.
And
that's good throwing, honey.
That was our relationship.
But for years.
For years.
Yeah.
For years we did this. And then we showed up at a party.
I don't remember this story.
And this guy was at this party. And we were going, he looks familiar. Do you know this guy? Who's this
we
guy?
never saw him dry.
Yeah. Never, and he never saw us,
I don't remember this story.
Clothes on.
Yeah.
And so, but he was at this party. Yeah. And so we figured out who we were.
Yeah.
And we talked, and that's where he told us he lives on the lake, and I'm sure
it was
we were
a
there
girlfriend.
together.
Yeah,
he lives with a girlfriend on the lake, and she doesn't want to go sailing with him, so he goes by himself.
Right.
Or he goes when he gets
I didn't
kicked
remember
out
that
of
was
the
at
house
a
or
party.
something.
Yeah.
Yeah, met him at a party on dry land.
Yeah, and
by accident.
But for years we knew this guy. We didn't know him. We
No.
just threw him a beer every time. I mean, he was moving out on this thing. He would wear a wetsuit.
Mm-hmm.
So he'd be there like all months of the year, like we were, because we just couldn't believe we were living down south where it didn't freeze, and we couldn't believe that we had this sailboat that we could sail, and so we were out every month of the year.
So that was Catman.
That was Catman. And then, do you want to tell the jet ski story?
I don't know the jet ski story.
Well, it was one of the nights we were going to anchor out, and we were going to stay in a new cove, a cove we had never stayed in before. And when we had a map of the lake. And so when we got to the area that we thought we were going to anchor in.
Oh, now I remember. Go ahead.
There were all these huge, they looked like mooring balls, great big orange balls, all in lines. There was all these lines, and we're going, what are these, all these mooring balls or these buoys? What are
huge
they?
Buoys,
yeah,
all in lines. And
in lines.
we were looking on our chart, and we thought, well, it kind of goes along this, it was a flooded valley.
Right.
It was the Corps of Engineers flooded valley to make the lake. And it kind of went along an underground railroad, an underwater railroad line. And we thought maybe it's marking that for some historical reason or something.
Right.
That's all we could think of. But the lake was deep. It was like 80 feet deep right there.
Right. So we thought, well, that
Couldn't
can't be
figure
a
it out.
hazard. Yeah, but we thought, well, we're going to anchor here anyway. So we anchored for the night, and we had a great setup. I mean, we covered the entire cockpit with sheets hung off the bimini so nobody could see in our cockpit, because it was a tiny boat. Just the two of us could sleep in it. That was about it. So the porta potty would go out into the cockpit, and with sheets all around the cockpit, you could use the porta potty in the middle of the night if you needed to, and nobody would see you, because bass fishermen did come out in the middle of the night. They were there with these big spotlights, often bass fishing. Okay, do you want to share what happened when we woke up in the morning?
Okay, well, that night, after it got dark, we were anchored out there, and this band started playing on the bank.
I don't remember that.
Yeah, it was, and all these, they were having a concert on the bank that across on the other side of the lake from where we were anchored. So we were anchored here, and then there was all these buoys, and then they're having a concert over there at night, and that was fun for us.
Yeah.
And then
Free again.
we woke up in the morning, and all these jet skis were racing around all these buoys. So that's when we figured out, okay, they're having jet ski races.
It was a national jet ski competition.
We had no idea.
And there was all old school, I mean, super old school jet skis.
The stand-up kind.
Yes. Yes.
And they'd be out there and being all fancy, and they'd show off for us a little bit. We'd holler at them, and they'd holler back. And then a boat came out and said, well, you guys are kind of in the way if you wouldn't mind moving. I mean, we can help you get through this course because I know you can't really steer those types of boats that you have.
Yeah, sailboats. You can't steer them.
We had an electric motor, like a 55-pound thrust trolling motor on the boat so we could motor, but yes, you can steer a sailboat.
Yes.
And so
that was hilarious. So many memories on Dagmar. Too many to list, but we had lots of guests on board over the years. So some of the guests, we had Chris and Karen Clark, my nephew and his wife. Shout out to Chris and Karen. Dr. Jansma, somebody that Jim worked with. Jen is out there. I think she's married now. I don't think her last name's Jansma anymore. So shout out to Jen. We had a lot of guests that we didn't get pictures of, and I wish we did. So shout out to Susan, Jim's sister. She got to go on Dagmar. And then Chris, my nephew, was back with his friend Dan. He was out on the boat. My niece Courtney, she was out on Dagmar. Yamile was another physician, a visiting physician from Bogota, Colombia, that you were working with. She came out on the boat. And then Ben and Kayla. I don't have any pictures of Ben and Kayla out on the boat. We sailed her a couple of times on Stillhouse Hollow Lake, which is also by Belton, wasn't it?
Mm-hmm. Close to Lake Belton. Again, another one of the top 5 cleanest lakes in Texas. Mm-hmm. Very, very pristine water and very little traffic. Mm-hmm. We anchored in one little bay. We were going to spend the night, I think, and we were having dinner. And Terry has an aversion to snakes. And of course, there's some poisonous snakes in Texas, cottonmouth and water moccasin. I don't know what kind of snake this was, but he was swimming across our bow, maybe 15 feet ahead of the boat. And Terry was uncomfortable with that snake being so close, so I thought, well, I'll just scare him away so he won't come back. So I start pounding on the side of the boat. And this is a little boat, you could reach over and touch the water.
Yes, that was wonderful.
And thinking that would just scare the snake away and he'd go away. Well, turns out the snake thought I was calling him for dinner or something, so he just turned right around and headed straight for the boat, came right up next to the boat, and then took off again.
That's pretty crazy.
I was ready to hit him with a paddle or something, but so I didn't know what kind of snake it was.
No,
but
I forgot about that.
Yeah, that was no fun.
What are the chances that snake would think you were calling him?
Yeah, the
to
vibration
pound on the
or
boat.
something.
Yeah, and he decided to come and see us.
Yeah,
it was, and I'm like, what?
He did.
But we had some great sails. We did go through some, pop-up storms. So we really cut our teeth. We learned how to sail fast. We learned how to sail at night. We learned we had a rim in the water. We learned how to sail. We lost a motor and learned how to sail into the dock. So we really cut our teeth on that little 15-foot. So much fun.
Yep, a lot of fun.
It was.
Well, we everything we read said the bigger the boat, the less you use it, especially if it's trailerable. The bigger it is, the less it gets used.
And she was on a trailer.
She was on a trailer, kept in the garage. So we got the smallest one we could and still sleep on it. Still camp on it overnight. Yeah,
we spent every weekend inside that boat. It had to be a contortionist to get in and get out, but it was a blast.
It wasn't that bad.
It was tiny. I was flexo girl.
Yep.
And so that was our very first sailboat. All right. Okay. Anything else you want to share?
I think I'm good.
Okay. All right. This is our February video. It's March 6th. Yeah, 2022.
There you go. So, it's good to know what month it is.
Yes, we will see you in April. Oh my goodness. Okay. Say bye, Jim.
Bye, Jim.